Let's give Frank a hand for allowing us to come here for another event, a forum. And we also want to thank our candidates, our own Dr. Lachey Collins, and also Colin Parent. Collins and Colin Parent, who have stepped up to run for the ADM and the 79th, the Assembly member in the 79th. And as I posted on Facebook earlier today, this is a very important race. This is a consequential race. Because not only does this race represent this district, the 79th, but the vote from whoever the Assembly member is, it has an impact statewide. Because as I've watched Akila, our Assembly member now, if you don't have the votes, your bills don't move forward. And so this is a very, very consequential race. And I am so glad that all of you showed up here. I'm sure, how many have received your ballots in the mail? So you're going to hold on to those ballots till after tonight, and you will make an informed decision about what's going to happen when you check that box. You'll have a better sense of who you're voting for and why you're voting for. And we want to again just thank our two wonderful candidates for taking the time out of their very, very busy schedule to come and share their vision and their efforts and what they intend to do, not only for their constituents in the 79th, but also the impact that they will have statewide. I'm going to turn this mic over to our moderator for the evening, none other than Cheryl Phelps. Cheryl, say it with me, Alethea Phelps. Say it with me, Cheryl Alethea Phelps.
And now you wonder why I call you names. Good evening, everyone. Let's hear some energy. This is a C4 event. We can talk back. All right. So my name is Cheryl Alethea Phelps. As Ellen Nash said, I use she, her pronouns. Thank you for joining us this evening. It's my great privilege to serve as moderator for another BayPAC San Diego event because I love my black job. The purpose of this evening's convening is to give all people, particularly black voters in the region, I'm going to turn this way so I can see some of your faces, in the region, the opportunity to develop deeper understanding of our political landscape and leaders by examining them through the lens of the black experience, aspiration, culture, and community. Tonight, we will hear from the candidates competing to fill the 79th Assembly District seat. So as I mentioned, this is a C4 forum. The difference between this event and previous BayPAC candidate forums is that, and I think this is the first time we've convened a candidate forum as a C4 entity. As a candidate forum? Second time, all right. And what this means is that we have flexibility to engage directly on partisan policy and political issues. For example, I can ask a partisan policy question and frame questions that compare the candidates' policy positions and records, and I can kind of make them examine each other's records and vet this, and that's what's so good about C4. So I'll start with a snapshot of the 79th. The California State Legislature is made up of 80 Assembly districts and 40 Senate districts. Assembly members are elected by district voters for a 2-year term and can serve no more than 12 years in the Assembly or a combined 12 years in the Assembly and the Senate. During each 2-year session, the Assembly introduces and debates more than 5,000 bills that, if passed by both the Assembly and the Senate and signed or not vetoed by the governor, become state law. The 79th is highly diverse. It's all in San Diego County, and it includes a mix of suburban and urban communities. It encompasses the city of La Mesa, where we are, Lemon Grove, and parts of Chula Vista, National City, and several neighborhoods in southeastern San Diego, including alphabetically Alta Vista, Bay Terrace, Choias View, Encanto, Lincoln Park, Mount Hope, Oak Park, Paradise Hills, holla C4, holla. Paradise Hills, Skyline, and where I was born and raised, Valencia Park. Candidates will have no more than 2 minutes for opening statements, 1 minute to respond to questions, and 2 minutes for closing statements. If you go over your time, I will say time twice, and then who knows what will happen. During our yes, no, I don't know rounds, you only have a few minutes to respond. So please be on your toes so as not to miss the opportunity. And you know how you ask someone a yes or no question and they start telling you a bunch of other stuff rather than yes or no? I don't like that. So it's yes, no, I don't know when we get to those rounds. And we're going to start with one of those. Regarding the questions, BayPAC conferred with local subject matter experts, including some lawmakers, to compile them. None were made available to the candidates beforehand. Time permitting, we will take questions from the audience once we've completed the planned program. So candidates, we welcome you. Thank you for making time to join us this evening and to address our concerns. So let's get started. We'll begin with your 2-minute opening statements. I meant to have us flip a coin, but we didn't, so let's do it this way. Think of a number that I have in my head between 1 and 5. Colin.
5.
5. 2. It was 4, so you may choose. You want to go, well, let me tell you what the choosing is.
Okay.
You can choose to go first or last, either opening or closing, and then Lachey gets to pick the other one.
Oh, I see. Okay. I'll go first.
First, so you'll do your opening statement first, right?
Yes.
Okay, and Lachey, what would you like to do? Would you like to go first or last on closing statement?
I'll go last.
You'll go last. Okay, sounds good. All right, 2-minute opening statements. I do have a timer. Colin, tell us about yourself.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for having me here. Thanks to Spacebar for hosting us, and thanks BayPAC for organizing this. My name's Colin Parent. I'm on the city council here in La Mesa. I grew up in the East County part of San Diego, in the Rancho San Diego area, Valhalla High School graduate. I moved back to East County about 10 years ago, ran for city council, was the first Democrat in 20 plus years to get elected out here. Very proud to say that we have a firm council majority now. A little bit about my background. You know, I went to law school, practiced law for a number of years before joining the Jerry Brown campaign, and then I worked there. He won, so I had an opportunity to work at the State Department of Housing, and then came back and to work at the Public Housing Authority at the City of San Diego. Housing, affordable housing, housing affordability have been some of the big things that I've been working on and focused on throughout my career and throughout this campaign. So the things that I've been hearing about the most from voters are how absolutely unaffordable it is to live in our community. The rent is absolutely too high, and this district is mostly renters. Housing, the ability to buy a house is completely out of reach for so many people. I went to law school, I'm on the city council in my city, and I'm a renter because I can't buy a house in my own city, in my own neighborhood. And that is a common story. And we got to do things about that. And we need the state to make better investments to be able to make that happen. And then homelessness. Oh my goodness, this is just completely out of control. We've been doing some things in La Mesa. We doubled the number of homeless outreach workers that we're funding in our budget last year, but it's definitely not enough, and we need more state resources. And finally, the roads. The roads look really rough in parts of this district, especially in Southeast San Diego and in City Heights. Those are areas that are not being equally served in our region, especially in the city of San Diego. And the state is actually giving $33 million a year to the city of San Diego for road repair, and they're clearly not spending it in a fair way. And we need the legislature to step in and tell cities they need to do a better job. So those are some of the things that I've been campaigning on. Love to talk more about them with you all during this and afterwards. And again, appreciate the opportunity to be here with you this evening.
Thank you. Perfect.
I'm a professional.
Okay, Lachey.
All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Dr. Lachey Sharp Collins, and thank you so much for having me here. Thank you to Spacebar for hosting this event, and also to BayPAC as well for hosting the Candidates Forum. I am the only candidate that is born and raised in the 79th State Assembly District, having grown up within the Valencia Park area, meaning Lincoln Park area primarily, being a graduate of Lincoln High School, and also attending San Diego State University. I am a proud mother of two. I now have a grown daughter and a 14-year-old son who I'm raising in this particular district, meaning I truly understand the ins and outs of this district because of my personal experience, not only growing up, but also having to have worked my entire life throughout the district and understanding the struggles of what it was like to be a renter at that time, but also purchase a home. I had to struggle during that particular part. I do bring to you all 9.5 years of experience of being the district director for our now Secretary of State, Dr. Shirley Weber, when she served in this same exact office. So that gives me the ability to come in and actually hit the ground running because I understand the ins and outs of this particular office. And so that's something else that actually sets me apart because I have that experience and have those overall relationships. The things that I'm primarily focusing on, anyone who knows me, is going to be education. Education is always the number one. That is the actual equalizer. That's the one thing that we all need before we can start having these conversations on how to address housing, how to address the environmental issues, how to address the social justice issues, how to address the healthcare concerns. And these are all things that I'm talking about throughout my actual platform. When we're talking about housing, I'm not just talking about us building. I'm talking about housing affordability and being able to promote generational wealth. When we're talking about environmental justice, I live right in Southeast San Diego behind Keeler. I hear this freight train all the time coming through. I have no idea what's on that train. But these are types of conversations we have to find out what's going on and why we're having this large influx of cancer throughout the district. Why is it that we are unable to continue to drive down our street without being stopped by the police because there's social justice concerns? So I'm sharing all this with you to say I'm a candidate who has the lived experience, who I sit up here and have to make sure that my son understands what it's like to be a young black man to walk outside that door.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you both for your statements, candidates. So that we can establish a baseline of sorts, please respond yes, no, or I don't know if you don't have an opinion to offer. Colin, is systemic institutional structural racism a problem in the state of California?
Yes.
Lachey. Same question.
Yes.
Lachey, if elected, will Black Lives Matter in your policy decision-making?
All the time.
Yes,
Yes.
no, or yes, yeah. Colin.
Yes.
Colin, are you knowledgeable about specific issues of concern raised by and/or affecting our region's Black communities that you can address as a lawmaker representing the 79th?
Yes.
Lachey.
Yes.
Thank you both. Okay, advocacy work often exists at the center of achieving equity for Black community, and this is true across an array of issues. And it's true for other marginalized groups as well who learn from and often benefit from our example before we do as Black people. So, Lachey, what issues have you advocated for that are key to addressing racial and social inequities impacting Black Californians?
Some of the issues that I've addressed, having not only served in the legislative office with Secretary of State Weber, but also in my community capacity, has to deal with education, number one, addressing the inequities as it's pertaining to these systemic barriers. Also serving on the board of Planned Parenthood of the Pacific Southwest and in addressing the lack of quality health care coming through our current communities, making sure that we do have access to quality health care within the neighborhoods. Also addressing social justice concerns, looking at some legislation pertaining to we worked on police body cameras. We worked on the RIPA board. We worked on our racial profiling. We worked on a number of legislation as well. Also within the community, I've personally worked with NAACP. Also have worked with BAPAC on different types of initiatives. And let's see, I've done quite a bit, serve on community organizations and boards, and making sure that we are receiving the quality funding that we need for the education system that we have, but also, just like I said, healthcare, education, social justice, healthcare, and there's so much more that I can address.
Actually, let's take a moment for you to do that. I want to drill down on some of you because you're talking about a broad array of things, and I really would love to hear more about where you've demonstrated leadership, you personally, not because you're representing someone else,
Sure.
but where you personally have demonstrated leadership in these areas?
One of the biggest ones, it dealt with talking to our legislators. So I was the former president of the Association of African American Educators. And as the president, we used to have meetings with the San Diego Unified School District to address the blueprint for African American achievement. During that time, the superintendent refused to continue on with those meetings. As a result, I was able to pull together a task force combined of different ethnic groups and organizations throughout San Diego County to continue to raise the questions about the school funding. As a result of that, we met with different legislators and continue to advocate for transparency and also accountability. And Secretary of State Weber, at that time, she was in the Assembly, and Senator Atkins, along with, at that time, Assemblymember Todd Gloria, they took it upon themselves to move forward and have the state do an audit. Instead of auditing one school district, they audited the top 3 districts. And out of that, that's how we ended up having what we have now, which is the Community Engagement Initiative that I'm actually a part of in my current role at the San Diego County Office of Education.
Thank you. Colin, same questions. What issues have you advocated for that are key to addressing racial and social inequities impacting Black Californians?
Yeah, so if people don't know, I didn't share it in my introductions, but I have a day job, and I'm the executive director and general counsel at a nonprofit called Circulate San Diego. And we do a lot of advocacy every day around public transit, housing affordability, affordable housing, transit-oriented development, those sorts of things. And so I'll give you a couple of examples. And we don't do advocacy by having meetings with people. We do advocacy by calling press conferences and yelling at elected officials to do a better job until they do a better job. And so, give you an example. So it used to be everyone, folks have ever used the Compass card. Used to be the Compass card, it's the Pronto card now to access transit. So it used to be that you couldn't load $20 on it. You could get a day pass or a monthly pass, but you couldn't have money on it and draw it down when you needed it. That was ridiculous. Anyone who's ever gone to any other city knows that that's a normal thing. And so we, in my organization, we called that out. We got some newspapers to write about it. We called a bunch of press conferences, and we just harassed the transit agency until they fixed it. Similarly, we did the same thing. It used to be up until very recently, if you had to transfer, you were taking a bus somewhere and you had to transfer to go to another place, you had to pay twice. What? That doesn't make any sense. And by the way, only bus riders had to do that. Trolley riders didn't have to do that. What? So we gave them a hard time. We called press conferences. We sent letters. We pushed them until they changed the policy they didn't want to change because it was the right thing to do and it was going to be better for low-income people who were riding transit.
Hold on one second.
Yeah.
I want to stop you there because you're at your minute time, but I do want to ask you the second question, and then I want to circle back because I don't want us to conflate being Black with being low income. And I don't want you to slip in there because I don't want to have to call you out on it. All right, so how have you demonstrated leadership in terms of addressing issues that are key to mitigating social and racial inequity?
Yeah, so what we have here, so thank you for raising that. You're absolutely right. It is also true that the population who relies on transit is disproportionately Black compared to compared to the rest of the population, right?
There you go.
And what there's a deep unfairness in the way that our transportation system is structured. That for folks who have a car, who it's much easier to get around. And we make it really hard for people who don't have a car, who rely on public transit, and that is is especially true for the African American community in our region. And we need to be treating things differently and more fairly, and making sure that we're making the right kind of choices so that everyone can access transportation and transit fairly.
Cool. I got one question for you, and then Lachey, I'm going to ask you the same thing. So if you're elected, what bills would you submit or sponsor to address the matters that you've raised, where you see your sweet spot in terms of being able to advocate on behalf of Black Californians?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a number of things that I'm really keen on. One thing that I talked about earlier about the low quality of the roads, especially in Southeast San Diego. So the state of California, they actually give cities money directly for road repair. City of San Diego, it's a formula fund. City of San Diego gets $33 million a year. They're spending it all on slurry seal, which is a kind of treatment that makes sense in some places, but not where the roads are bad. And I don't think that's fair.
Is that the one that just kind of will peel off?
Yeah,
Pour it in and
yeah,
then it'll just come
it covers up if there's like a small things, it kind of fills in some cracks, and it's good for certain places.
But not big holes?
But not big holes, yeah, exactly. And so I want to do a bill that I've been talking about, did a press conference on it, it's on my website, Fix the Roads Act, to put some accountability on cities when they get that money. I want them to get that money, but I want them to spend that money to fix the places that are needed the most first. And that's going to be, and if you can ask the city of San Diego, you can look at their own research reports. Southeast Council District 4, Council District 9 are below average in the city. And if we change that, things would get better
All
for
right,
people.
thank you. Lachey, same question. If elected, what bills would you submit or sponsor to address the issues that you raised as priority issues?
Okay, so one of them will have to be, as it pertains to education, going back to ensure that we do have clear-cut transparency and accountability across the board, not only with our traditional public schools, but also with our charters, and making sure that, that people are aware of how our charter school boards are actually being elected. That is important because they are getting state funding. Also, when it comes to housing, making sure that we do have housing programs that are available, but primarily looking at the equity within itself. The state do know, basically, I would like the state to consider taking on some of the equity that is there to, of course, allow for the home to be a little bit more affordable for families. Dealing with tuition caps. Too many of our college students are suffering, and college should not be an actual debt sentence. So we have to do what we can to address that, particularly in our BIPOC communities, as we have to look at the whole reducing of our carbon footprint by a certain time frame. Electric vehicles, that is important. And so what else can we do to get it? When you think about the BIPOC community, a lot of us cannot afford to purchase electric vehicles. So the state needs to start to consider that as well. And so I will want to look at that and going into retrofit homes for HVAC, air conditions, but also for methane. A lot of our homes have a lot of older gas appliances that need to be pulled out. So these are some things that I would want to look at and make sure we get some legislation.
Thank you.
And go there. There was something I did want to go back on that he did say. If it's
Well,
okay.
let me, is it, there's going to be a chance for some back and forth, the next question I'm asking.
Okay.
Okay? All right, both of you, this is a partisan seat, and both of you are Democrats. So you'll likely hold the same policy positions on a few things. So, starting with you, Lachey, please tell us specific qualifications, what specific qualifications and record of achievement distinguishes you from the other candidate in the race? And Colin, the same question will be to you.
Okay. So let me just be clear from the beginning. I've never been an elected official, okay? So I'm not going to claim to have been one. However, I have been a staffer. And me working inside that office, that actually qualifies me even more so for this seat because, one, that was for this particular office. And as the district director, I had to learn even more about this district, the ins and outs, understanding each issue area, and being able to navigate and continue to build the relationships across the entire district within itself. So that alone is a qualification because I have already done this work from the very beginning. Not only have I done the work in the office, but also outside. My community advocacy that I have done from being a public servant from the time I was even 2 years old, didn't even know that. I was doing that at the age of 2. But being active within the community and sharing in my lived experiences. If you want someone in this seat to speak for you, you need to have someone who understands and who have walked a mile in your shoes. These things are extremely important in order for your voices to be heard. And so when we go back to the one part that I was saying about the advocacy having to be when things are being yelled at and yelled about and press conferences and all that, press conferences are great. But if you are not invited to have a seat at the table, then we have an issue. People should not be coming out speaking for you, then they need to be speaking with you. And so that's something that qualifies me. I'm the community engagement specialist for the San Diego County Office of Education. And that is what I do, is bring our communities together and find common ground. And so we can agree to disagree on some things. However, throughout that particular process, we have to meet in the middle and do what's going to be right and what's just not only for our kids, but for the entire community. And in this case, also for the state.
Thank you. Time. Colin, What specific qualifications and record of achievement distinguishes you?
Yeah, so I think, I have a lot of experience in government in a variety of different ways. I served in the administration at the Department of Housing. I served in local government, first at the Public Housing Authority in San Diego, and then for the last 8 years as an elected official. So I've had that experience and understand the challenges and opportunities of representing people in those capacities. Some of the things that, we talked about some of the stuff that I've done at Circulate San Diego. In La Mesa, I'm very proud that we're building the first 100% affordable housing development in generations, just done right across the street from City Hall. You can go see it on your way home. That'll ribbon cutting will be next year. 200 families, I think, are going to be able to live in there. It's a mix of low, moderate, and low and moderate income households. That's something that I spent a lot of time on to make sure that it was going to happen, and it's happening. I'm very proud of that. When I started on the city council in La Mesa, we didn't do anything for homelessness, and then we funded a homeless outreach program, and then we brought it in house a couple years later, and then we doubled the funding for it, so that we have 4 people now. These are the kinds of really substantive, specific ththings that I've had an opportunity to work on and get across the finish line. And that's the kind of approach that I want to take as a representative of this district as well. I really want to continue my focus on real practical solutions and outcomes that really provide a direct benefit to our community.
Thank you. And can you also, Colin and Lachey, you'll follow up after this. Would you share your reaction to your opponent's response to the same question?
About?
You heard what she said about what distinguishes her. So I'd like you to share your reaction.
Listen, Lachey has done a lot of things in the community in her career, and those are perfectly relevant for people's considerations. I think that my experience is very substantive, and I think I've got a record of accomplishment of things that I've done on my own as an elected official, as an advocate, as a head of a prominent local advocacy organization, and think that I have both the skills and experience and temperament to continue to do meaningful things for our community.
Thank you. Lachey, your reaction, and if you want to throw in that other thing, you can use your minute to do that.
Okay, I kind of threw it into the last one. I threw it into the last one.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Overall, I believe that Colin has done a lot of things, a lot of work for the Mesa City Council and also for Circulate San Diego. But the one thing that I find a little concerning about their response is dealing with the affordable housing buildings that is in La Mesa and indicating that it's the real affordable. And for me, the conversation is that it's not really affordable when the average rent is going to be $3,000. So when we're talking about affordable housing, we need to really talk more about housing affordability and how we can get them in and maintain. And so that would be the only thing. But he's done a lot of things for the city of La Mesa, a lot of things for Circulate San Diego. You guys see all the bike lanes we have going on. He's done a lot of great work. But when we're talking about housing, it's time to start talking about more about the community needs and the reasons why we are where we are. The rents are too damn high.
Thank you. Do you want to respond to that?
Sure. I mean, listen, we have a housing crisis. That's true in La Mesa. It's true throughout San Diego. It's true throughout California. It's a growing problem nationally. It's primarily a supply constraint. We're not building enough homes. And you know who else is talking about that a lot? I don't know if you've heard of her. Her name is Kamala Harris, right? She talked about it in her debate with Donald Trump. She talked about it at the DNC. She talks about it at every major interview she gives. That's exactly right. And we got to get past. We got to embrace this. We got to have more homes we absolutely need more subsidized, permanently affordable homes too. But we also just need more homes overall. And that's something that I've been very consistent on. I've done a lot of work on, and I think that's people are starting to understand that's breaking through. And having the Democratic nominee for president, the sitting vice president, Californian, saying that, I hope starts changing that tide so we can stop fighting against new homes and recognize instead that we need them and that's a key part of making our communities more affordable.
Thank you. Lachey, do you have a 100-day plan for what you want to accomplish if you're elected? Yes, no, I don't know.
Oh, yes.
Colin?
No.
Okay. Lachey, will you be able to provide us your plan by Monday so BayPAC can share it with its members?
Sure.
Thank you. You said no.
Yeah, it's still no.
Okay. So, to both of you, we'll start with you, Colin. Do you have a specific plan to work with local elected officials to ensure appropriate implementation of laws passed by you and in the state legislature?
Yeah, I mean, it's not a specific plan. It's more of a, what is it? The concept of a plan is the phrase. What my intent would be to do sort of what I've been doing so far as an elected official is just to be familiar with folks in the area and other elected officials. Be open and accessible to them. Everyone in this district has my cell phone number because I mailed it to tens of thousands of people in the last week. And so, and I think also the other thing that I've tried to do as an elected official and will continue to try to do if elected to the assembly is really be affirmative and going out and asking for people's input as opposed to waiting for them to complain to me about some issue that I'm doing. When I put out a policy proposal on the city council or in my role at Circulate, I always try to identify who are the folks who are the most interested, who are the most engaged, who are most knowledgeable about these issues, and seek their input before I put something out there. And
Is that why you don't have a 100-day plan? Because you're waiting for input?
Well, no, I don't have a 100-day plan because I think plans have a certain utility, and it would be I think that would be putting the cart before the horse. Every time I've talked to anyone who's been elected to the legislature, they say as soon as you get in there, it's an absolute whirlwind, and all of your plans go out the window, and you have to kind of figure it out as long as you go. And so every time I have like an idea of something that I want to do after I'm elected, what I do is I write it down, and I don't think about it and I'm not going to think about it until the election. So that's been kind of my approach.
List?
Oh, it's on my phone.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I am not sharing it. If your follow-up question, because there's a bunch of silly ideas too.
Now I'm really curious.
No, you should be. It'd be really fun for everyone to see it.
Lachey,
So.
what specific plan to work with local electeds to ensure appropriate implementation of laws passed by you? Do you have one? Yes, no, I don't know.
There's no specific plan written out, but in my head of how I want to operate, yes.
So, can you share some highlights?
Highlights. So making sure that I am familiar with all of our other elected officials and their current packages. So making sure that I do understand what each member is going to be offering, whether it's congressional, city council, and other local municipalities. Also being able to work with them and partner on various ideas, and being able to partner with them, making sure that I understand their needs and they understand my needs. And not only is understanding my needs, but understanding our district needs, and being able to have them participate in the legislative brainstorm sessions that we will be hosting, and making sure that we have everyone's collective voice being elevated and moving forward as we continue to talk about the issues and/or concerns across the entire county
Thank you.
and the state.
Thank you. This is coming to you too, Lachey. So coverage of hurricanes Helene and Milton have dominated the news. In fact, they kicked the presidential race right out of the news. And, the aftermath of both was just devastating, tragic. And we know that climate change, human-made climate change, is having a sustained negative impact and consequences for our state and our local region. So what legislation would you support or propose to address climate change? You mentioned electric cars. Do you want to expand on that, or do you have some other specifics you can share? Same question be coming to you.
Sure. I mean, the electric vehicles within itself is, going back once again, a lot of us are not going to be able to afford it. And if you are pushing us to have your carbon footprint reduced by a certain time frame, a lot of us, we're going to need some assistance to be able to get those vehicles. However, being able to keep up of the vehicles is going to be difficult as well. So it's going to be a process, making sure we do have charging ports, and the homes are going to be retrofitted to accommodate those, making sure we do have the universal charging ports as well.
Are you discussing legislation you plan to propose?
These are some of the legislation here, yes. So making sure that we do have that available. Once again, looking at the HVACs being into the homes, particularly those that are senior, starting with our senior population. A lot of our areas, including Spring Valley and some other inland areas, some of those homes do not have air conditioning. Then some homes that are a little bit more further out, they do, but they're going to need some additional type of assistance there. When it comes down to climate, it's definitely going to have to be the budget. We need to make sure we do have enough money allocated for the infrastructure as it pertains to what's happening. What happened in January should not have happened. And even though it did, the state, we weren't thinking to have enough money allocated for that particular type of issue. We primarily think about the coastal, right? We think about other areas and not so much here. And so making sure that we do have money allocated within the budget, so that is something that's key as well. But there are a number of things that come to mind dealing with the environmental justice component, because it's not just that. It's carbon monoxide detectors within the home, making sure that as I mentioned, the methane gas. So the appliances, there is legislation now about the appliances being properly labeled, but we have to now go in and help fund that. And also solar panels, making sure that we can get that
Thank you.
solidified.
Colin?
Yeah, so, climate's super important. Electric vehicles are great. They're not going to make a sense for everyone. It wouldn't make sense for me. I'm a renter. Like, there's no place for me to put an electric car. And most people in this district are renters, right? So that can't be our only solution. One of the things that we really need, so I serve on the San Diego Community Power Board representing the city of La Mesa. We approve power purchase agreements with energy providers, clean energy providers. These folks are having to go almost a decade to get fully permitted to build a solar farm or a geothermal plant or things like that. A lot of that's because of a lot of the barriers that California is putting in those. If we want that green energy, which I think we do, I think we need to revisit some of our policies so we're able to get those things in the ground and producing clean energy, and to reduce the costs of that ratepayers are paying.
Would this be an example of legislation you'd be interested in moving forward?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and there have been some proposals in the past few years, and I think we need to revisit them and bring them back. And then finally, we don't have to look at the news today farther in the east to identify climate disasters. We had one right here, right? Mm-hmm. And the state actually makes a lot of investments through grants for stormwater maintenance or stormwater infrastructure. I'm not convinced the state is prioritizing the areas with greatest need.
Yeah,
right?
I'm not convinced of that either.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody
They're
here is
not.
convinced of
Yeah,
that.
and so what I would like to do is to review all of those. The grant programs require the state agencies who are administering them prioritize the places of greatest need, and that's going to be Southeast San Diego, Southcrest, Spring Valley, Lemon Grove, places that were the hardest hit in our communities during these storms.
I want to dig a little bit more into that, because there's a clear lack of equity. And environmental equity is in fact a thing. Lachey, you mentioned environmental justice. That's the same thing. And when you see ongoing pollution of waterways in South County, and you don't see that in other parts of San Diego County. So as a state law, and this is to both of you, Lachey, we'll start with you. As a state law, and I'm thinking two things. One, about the floods in, again, communities that I connect with. But also what the South Bay, Imperial Beach, the contaminants, there was such severe toxicity just a few weeks ago. And so, Lachey, as a state lawmaker, what would be your responsibility to address not the environmental equity part alone, but the binational part? What are the binational issues we need to consider when we start? We're right on the border. How do we do that?
We're going to have to strengthen the relationships and do what we can to have deeper conversations with those that are also across the border to try to get things done. We know that there is going to be some pushback. However, these things have to happen. We have to do what we can to regain the trust and build the trust. And
Regain the trust of whom?
Regain the trust. So some people across the border, as we're thinking about it and talking about it, there's a trust issue there. We've been raising issues for a long time about fixing certain things. Things haven't happened. And some of it has to do with, number one, the socioeconomic issues. So a lot of the environmental justice concerns, environmental concerns, has to do with the lack of income. And so by not having that structure, we need to do what we can to reassure them that we can assist with identifying how we can help fund that structure so we can get things rectified for both sides. Because what's coming over from South Bay is coming over into our areas. And
Right.
so why not build a bridge and get that trust and do what we can to work that out?
Thank you. Colin?
Could you repeat the question?
Yeah. As a state lawmaker, and this is about environmental equity, but specifically about ongoing pollution in South County, and I'm thinking Imperial Beach, but not just Imperial Beach. We've got, you mentioned the floods in community, Southeast San Diego. As a state lawmaker, what would be your responsibility to address this issue? And what I mean by that, there are binational concerns. How do you see yourself navigating those binational issues?
Yeah, I mean, the stormwater stuff, I think there's a much clearer path for the state to do things differently, like where the state is funding a lot of this infrastructure. We need to make sure that we're prioritizing the places of greatest need. That to me is very clear, right?
Okay.
I think the challenge with the Imperial Beach and the pollution that's coming from south of the border is much more challenging, and it's not clear to me what the state can do. It's not even clear to me what the federal government can do, right? And also, like, what you got to understand too, like, what I go down there and I say, oh, we're going to fix this and this. You know, the Secretary of State Blinken's going to call me up and say, hey, what are you doing? Like, this is not your job. This is the federal government's job, right? So I'm not like opposed in any principled way against the state doing whatever we can to help address that. I just think that it's just not obvious to me what the role is. So I think that being said. So this is not like I don't have like a great answer for this, but I think that the best thing that we can do is we absolutely need to be supporting the mayor of Imperial Beach and her efforts to try to get this on the radar, so encouraging and pressuring our federal elected office holders to get this on the president's radar and in Congress's radar to make sure that we're doing everything that we can. I'm not sure that's going to be enough. I think there's a reason why this very difficult problem hasn't been solved. But I think we all have to be on board with putting as much pressure on the federal government to take action, and as much support for our local elected officials who are doing the best they can navigating just this terrible situation.
Thank you. All right. Yes, no, I don't know. We'll start with you, Colin. Are Black Californians over-policed? Yes, no, I don't know, if you don't have an opinion to offer.
Yes.
Lachey,
Yes.
is it necessary to reallocate a percentage of police funding to community-based non-law enforcement solutions? Lachey,
Yes.
Colin,
No.
why not?
So I take a yes and approach to this, and we did this in the city council in La Mesa too, and with my colleague my former colleague who's here with us this evening. It is absolutely true that there's a bunch of things that happen in the world that we need government response to, for which the police are not the best or appropriate response. And what we need to do is we need to fund those services, right? So that's
Where would that funding come from?
well, it comes from wherever all the other funding comes from, right?
Well, why wouldn't it come from the police budget?
That's not how. I don't think that's
Yeah,
how
it is.
budgeting works.
Yeah, you make a decision beforehand.
Yeah, so I don't. So we were able to fund a homeless outreach program, and also bring in additional medical and other resources to supplement the work of our police department, and to also to provide responses to situations where previously the police were responding with a different type of intervention.
I may be confused about something. When you said it couldn't happen, were you speaking in local government or were you speaking state government?
Well, I'm not saying
You said that you couldn't move funds around.
Oh, no.
Make
One
budget decisions.
could move funds around. I'm saying that one doesn't need to remove funds from a particular place in order to find funding for another place. There's things like budgets tend to grow over time, and you can take. You can say, okay, we know we're going to have a 5% increase over this year, and we're going to choose to invest that in newer different priorities. Those are absolutely things that can and do happen.
I want to put a pin in that because I want to come back to you, Lachey, and I'd like you to amplify your answer. You said yes. Why do you think yes?
Can you just go back and
The
restate
question
Yes.
is it necessary to reallocate a percentage of police funding to community-based, non-law enforcement solutions? You said yes. Why?
Because the community can help turn things around. When you are having programs such as Pillars of the Community, when you're having programs such as, let's say, Heartbeat Music Academy, and there's a whole other youth programs that currently exist. When you are now allocating the funds to those, that means you're doing what you can to keep people from going into the system. And so being able to pull it from that and trying to invest, whether it's going to be into some type of rehab programs or investing into not only some rehab, but also some of the housing itself. So that way those that are coming out of our prison system, they have actual adequate housing available. Taking the money from that and putting it back into the community can actually help. We have so many programs that can thrive, not only locally within San Diego, but across the state that can help keep the men from going into prison, but also the women as well.
Thank you.
So,
Colin?
yeah. stop
Okay,
your-
do your C4 clapping, get it out of the way. All right, Colin. Is there a need for greater oversight and greater accountability for law enforcement statewide?
Oh, yeah, and I.
Yes, no, I don't know.
Oh, yes.
Lachey.
Yes.
Lachey, have you and/or will you accept campaign contributions from police unions? Yes, no, I don't know.
No.
Colin,
Yes.
what police unions have you accepted funds from?
It's on, I mean, it's on the financial disclosures. I don't know them
I don't have them.
offhand.
I don't have them at
Well,
my
I would
fingertips.
encourage you, I hear we have a very good person leading the Secretary of State's office, and she maintains a very good database of information about where donations are coming from.
Okay, so
for
you're not
different
able to
candidates.
tell us where your donations are coming
Not,
from?
certainly not all of them.
Not the
Yeah,
police?
I certainly have them written down somewhere.
Thank you.
But, yeah.
I'd like to see that. I'm interested.
Yeah,
But,
and just to be clear, I'm not trying to be coy about this. This is all public information. Everyone's able to see where funds are coming from to support any candidate for office in
I
California.
will respond to that by saying that I would want you to be prepared to answer a question like that in a forum like this. This community, as you've already acknowledged, is over-policed, so we would be concerned about that. Lachey, how will you vote on, or have you voted already, on Proposition 39?
36?
36.
36?
36. How will
No.
you vote on Proposition 36?
No.
Colin,
Yes.
tell us why.
Yeah, so, listen, we have some real challenges going on here in California. And I say this as someone who, I voted for Prop 47. When I voted for Prop 47, we had a serious prison overcrowding. We had big challenges to our budget. We were using incarceration to solve all of our society's problems, and that was wrong. Today, we have somewhat different problems. We have fentanyl running amok in our communities. We have real serious shoplifting issues. And we're seeing things like it used to be, we've actually seen a reduction in referrals to drug court because people don't have the incentive to avoid a felony charge. And these are leading to some real consequences to our communities. I was hoping very much that the legislature were going to address these issues substantially, and they didn't do that, and they failed. And now I think it is an obligation for the voters to step in and to correct some of these things.
Thank you for your candor. I do want to come back to this, but before I do, I'd like to know why you're saying no, Lachey.
Because as we pushed out Prop 47, it was to do everything we can to reduce the mass incarceration. And doing this particular piece of legislation is going to take us back and then, of course, increase mass incarceration. Not only is it going to do that, but it's going to be cutting out mental health programs that we currently need. It's only going to be going back to continue to increase the racial profiling that already exists. And it's going to cut out some of the rehabilitation programs that we already have. And so once again, it's going back to the recidivism once again. And so this is some of the reasons why I am saying no to us voting on Prop 36. There's other things and other steps for what we can actually take. And so I'm asking the last question about taking money from police departments and allocating it to programs and services. This is one of those instances where more money can come back in and be allocated to proper programs and services that is there. Make sure we do have equal access to apprenticeship programs, making sure that people, they know about their opportunities for their career pathways and so forth. So this is why I'm saying no. We have to stop we have to stop the recidivism. We have to stop the mass incarceration of our people.
Thank you. Colin, would you respond to her reply?
Yeah.
Do you disagree?
Well, no, I disagree, but I mean, I could repeat what I said earlier. I mean, I think that we're having some real challenges in society right now, and people are. I ride the trolley a lot, right? And so I'm encountering people who are, they're drug addicted. I did a tour of Father Joe, one of Father Joe Village's new facilities, and like outside of that place, when people were trying to recover, trying to get off the street, trying to make a new change to their life, and there's like these open drug markets right in front of the building, and this brand new building, and these are not good things. And
How will Prop 36 address that?
Yeah, so I mean, a couple of things. I mean, I think the most fundamental valuable thing is returning to have new incentives to divert people into drug court is an important thing. One of the unforeseen, unfortunate consequences of 47, which I voted for, and I think it was the right choice to make at the time, is that you're actually seeing a reduction in people entering into drug court, and they're not getting those services. And people, I mean, I know people who've had addictions. I've had family members and oftentimes you hear this over and over and over again that the threat of a felony prosecution is what got them to pay attention and to choose some of those things.
So what concerns me, frankly, to both of you, and Lachey, you kind of touched on it, and Colin, I guess I'm directing this to you, is that Prop 47 was a result of our overcrowding in our prison system. And what you're talking about, wouldn't we start seeing the prison population rise?
Yeah, the LAO report on this did, suggest, yeah, there probably would be some increase, but not a lot. And so I think, but I think the core point, though, that I want to share with people, so that they sort of understand where I'm coming from and the perspective on this, is that I think we have to be responsive to the situation that we find ourselves at the time, and that sometimes I don't think there's an end state to politics. There's not like one policy we're going to adopt and it's going to live that way forever. We have to be nimble. We have to respond to the challenges that we're having. And
I'm sorry. So you're saying we would incarcerate people and then maybe we change our minds?
I think so right now there are certain people who are not being charged with felonies, right? So maybe repeat shoplifters, right? People who are carrying really large amounts of fentanyl, carrying fentanyl with a gun. Those are some of the things that are identified in Prop 36. Who currently are not getting into jail or into prison, right? That would be. And so that it would be a change, right? So more people would be going to prison. But I'm thinking about, and so that would be true. But it's also true. My view is that we're talking about some folks who should not be on the street, and that we need to reset people's expectations and understanding of what's permissible and acceptable in society. And I'm not suggesting that we adopt Prop 36 and then we never revisit anything again. I'm sure there's going to be unintended consequences, challenges that we're going to have to revisit it again. That's how our laws work. If we didn't need to change our laws from time to time, we wouldn't have a legislature. We wouldn't have the public initiative process. These are the processes by which we continue to tinker with and to improve our situation.
Lachey, would you like to respond?
Yes, thank you. Okay, so we know that, yes, there is no one-size-fits-all approach to anything that we actually propose. But when you talk about the challenges that exist, the main reason why we're in a situation that we're in is because we haven't been able to keep up with the cost of living. So people are stealing, people are doing various things because they're trying to survive. They're working 2 or 3 jobs and still trying to figure out how to pay their bills, still trying to figure out how to purchase clothes, laundry detergent, and all these different types of things. this particular legislation, well, I guess you could say prop itself, is the way that it's being targeted and marketed is as if it's just about blacks. This is something that's happening across the board. We're all struggling with some socioeconomic factors, and we have to make sure that we are doing what we can to accommodate everyone that's been impacted. This is going to impact the lower income communities and the middle class community, and in particular, the black and brown communities 100%. We're talking about fentanyl. There's so many other things that are coming into play that is part of the reason why people are doing the things that they are doing. And so we can't say lock them up. But we do know that the prison beds itself, they are already being identified by third grade. So if you're not able to read and then your scores are low in math, they have already calculated the next number of how many prison beds they're going to have. We have to come in and change that whole type of mentality. This is the reason why we are where we are right now, because no one is trying to think outside the box.
Thank you. One thing that I will observe is that it's not just for people who have large supplies of drugs, but even people who have drugs for personal use. They would be caught up in the carceral. They could be caught up in the carceral system as well. So you mentioned the fact that there were economic disparities and that people are struggling. Lachey, what is your plan to create economic opportunity for San Diegans in the 79th and beyond?
Some of that has to do with, one, investing and giving back to our community. It's important that we do everything we can to invest. I actually jotted some stuff down to make sure I did not miss any points on this one.
I'm going to start your timer.
Okay, no problem. Okay. But definitely do what we can to create the economic opportunities, invest within our communities, make sure that we do have equity funds available, bonds, and we have various types of grants, that we support our community organizations and also job trainings, and making sure that we are pushing out our career technical education and our apprenticeship programs. Do what we can to increase our government contracts. We need to start doing that. That's something that we were working on before when we tried to come back and go to repeal Prop 209, as we were looking at black-owned businesses and contracts and licenses being there. So making sure that we are addressing our small businesses, black-owned, and disadvantages that currently exist there. Address the affordable housing issue that we currently have, increase our pay and our wages, make sure we have good job and benefits. Also, carving out.
Are these things you intend to legislate? How do you legislate that?
Well, I mean, so some of these things are already on the books. So now it's just going in to identify which ones have actually already been processed. So they've made it through the governor, they've been signed, and they're being implemented, and what haven't. And those that have not made it through that process, what was it? And go back to fix it and figure out how we can move it forward.
So that's how you see yourself addressing
definitely making sure that
challenges. So that's part of your plan.
Definitely have to go back and see what's worked and what isn't working, and how we can go back to address it.
Thank you. Colin, what's your vision for ensuring greater participation for California-based underrepresented businesses in our state procurement? The state of California does a lot of buying. We're the 5th largest economy in the world. So how do you see bringing to the table, to the market, Black-owned, BIPOC-owned businesses? And I will say that the procurement process tends to be quite unfair. Even when you see BIPOC-owned businesses in, they don't have the high wage earning contract. So where do you see making adjustments for that?
May I answer the prior question first, and then we can answer that too? Yeah.
Please,
okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. And so we wanted to talk about sort of economic opportunity, and I wanted to. I'm not going to give you 12 different things. Although there's at least 12 different things that we ought to be doing, I really want to focus on one about housing and housing affordability. One of the things that I hear about a lot when I'm talking to voters in Southeast San Diego, especially black voters in Southeast San Diego, is people feeling that there are not opportunities to generate generational wealth through home ownership, right? And that's because the housing is so expensive. It's really challenging. Now we can do things like grants and that sort of stuff. We should be doing that. Home buyer assistance programs. Those are good things we should do. But getting a $50,000 down payment assistance is not going to help you pay the mortgage on a $1 million house, which is what the average house is in our region, right? So we need to be able to have. There also need to be a return of starter homes. Starter homes, townhomes, condos, smaller homes that first-time buyers are able to get access to, and that is just not happening now, right? If you've ever been trying to buy a house recently, right? And so one of the things that I want to do, a bill that I want to sponsor, is or author rather, is to create to require cities to allow for townhomes. Right. So what that basically means is a lot of cities, and unfortunately this is true for mine too, have like these very large minimum lot size requirements that essentially mean they sort of keep the floor for the price of a house relatively high. And those, by the way, those are on purpose to try to keep lower income people out, and specifically black people out of neighborhoods.
Could you explain that again? How does that work?
Yeah. So what'll happen is, right, so if you want to build a house in a certain neighborhood, a lot of cities will have in their zoning that you have to have 3,000 square foot lot. Right, even if you're only going to build an 800 square foot unit, right, or home, right. So instead of being able to build 4 homes on that lot,
Got to buy that big lot.
you got a big lot, right? And that means that instead of it being like a $400,000 home, which is still a stretch for a lot of people, but like it's much cheaper than otherwise, it's like at minimum an $800,000 home. Right, and so if we can say, and there's been other cities and states that have done some reforms on this to say, listen, you're not allowed to, your minimum lot size has to be much smaller and much more manageable, and that will allow for more homes to be built that folks can afford, especially for first-time home buyers, and that allows people to get on that housing ladder, build some equity. Stay there forever if they want, or trade it up to something larger if their circumstances change, their family changes, and that's a very specific thing that I think we can do that will unlock opportunities for people that have been missing for generations now.
Thank you. So I'm going to ask the second question
yeah.
again.
Yes, thank you. Yes,
no,
please.
but I'm going to
Please.
pack it with another one. And
Oh,
Lachey, listen
okay.
up, because it's going to come at you too. And so this has to do with the fact that, the state government is an employer. It's a purchaser. And so the state can use resources to leverage economic development without having to pass legislation every single time. So, but sometimes you need to do that to get things going and to create the architecture around with, you can have some paradigm shift in how we look at our budgets. So the question that I want to put on the table, your vision for ensuring greater participation of BIPOC-owned businesses in our state procurement process. And the other one, so hold on to that, and then I want to read this one because there's some stats in here I want to make sure that we include. And Lachey, again, listen up, because this second one is coming at you. According to the 2020 annual census of the state of civil service, among state employees earning under $40,000, most are non-white. And among state employees earning more than $100,000, most are white. If elected, how would you address this well-documented and ongoing salary disparity between non-white and white state employees?
Yeah, wow, that's a great question. So I think a couple of things. I think in terms of like procurement and state investments, I think we need to be prioritizing those investments in communities that haven't seen those investments, right? And then pairing that with local hire, with project labor agreements, things like that, to make sure that we're bringing in people from the community to be able to get those jobs, to get those opportunities, to get those contracts. That's definitely the top of it. I think the second one is much harder to address, but I think it's good. I mean, the first thing that I would say is if we didn't have that data, we need to be tracking that data, because you got to track it to make impacts on it. But then I think we need to be having some real serious conversations with our public agencies about and the Cal HR, the public agency that does the hiring and processes, to make sure that they're doing what they ought to be doing to ensuring this greater equity in these employment roles. Managing employment in a large organization is challenging and complicated, but we should be up to the task, and we should be setting clear, enforceable standards and expectations for our government agencies and holding them to account, and making that and tracking the success or failures of that in a very public way, so that people are able to identify to what extent we are succeeding, and if we're not succeeding, to make the appropriate changes so that we are.
So is that part of your record as a city council member? If we looked at your record, would we see that you're doing that?
Well, yeah.
Tackling those kinds of challenges?
Yeah, well, to some extent, but I'm gonna credit again my former colleague Akilah Weber, who was very effective at voicing these concerns in our administration. And I don't know if you know this, Akilah, but like we get reports periodically now from our city manager showing the progress that we have on having a more inclusive workforce. And I think that's, to my mind, this wasn't my idea, it was her idea, but I've seen how it can be effective and think that we can continue doing that.
Thank you. Lachey, do you want me to repeat the question?
Yes, please.
According to the 2020 annual census of state and civil service, on the state of civil service, among state employees earning under $40,000, most are non-white. And state employees earning more than $100,000, most are white. And the question, if elected, how will you address this well-documented and ongoing salary disparity between non-white and white state employees?
Okay. So we definitely have to address the fair hiring practices that currently exist, but we're going to have to approach it the same way that we have as we talked about gender pay gaps and so forth, making sure that we do have a subcommittee that currently exists to make sure that we are looking at the data that is there to address not only the pay equity amongst women, men, and in our non-binary community as well, but also addressing those that are particularly people who are of color. But also, when you're talking about the pay itself and the disparities that exist, that goes back into the conversation of the reparations. Also going back to that and making sure that we do have some things that are there to correct the wrongs that have currently existed and making sure that we do have salary increases that are coming across the board. So really dealing with the fair hiring practices and making sure, as Colin also indicated, that the expectations are clear on when we're hiring, how we're hiring, and what the pay is supposed to be to get it across the board.
Thank you. I'm going to ask a couple of questions about reparations, and then we're going to go into housing and home ownership and homelessness. So this, yes, no, I don't know. Colin, do you support reparations for descendants of enslaved Black Americans living in California?
Yes.
Lachey.
Yes.
So Governor Newsom recently vetoed some key bills on reparations. Lachey, if elected, will you help to get future bills on reparations signed into law?
Yes.
Colin.
Yes.
Thank you. All right, so Colin, I'm going to throw a lot of this in your lap because this is the thing that you've said is your thing. So I want to really dig into that and unpack where you see this going, this advocacy going. So home ownership is a primary driver for wealth building, as you've mentioned. Yet in the California Housing Finance Agency reports that today's Black home ownership rate has fallen below the rates in the 1960s, when it was completely legal to discriminate against Black home buyers. In 2019, 41% of Black families own their, 41%, excuse me, of Black families own their homes. This compares to 49% of Latino families, 66% of API families, and 68% of white families. What is your vision to reallocate or increase the pool of housing funds to increase Black ownership?
Yeah, I think, I don't, you know, the housing funds are important. There's a relatively small amount of money that's available for down payment assistance. But honestly, I don't think that's the big driver here. And I think a focus on that to the exclusion of the real reasons are the real possible solutions is a mistake. And so I think instead what we need, and by the way, I'm still for it. Like, it's great to have, you know, down payment assistance, that sort of stuff. But like, there's a lot of people who need homes. You're not going to have enough money. You can't give everyone $200,000. Like, that's just not a real solution, right? It's going to be a lottery at best. And so instead what we need to do is we need to make sure that a vast majority of people who own homes bought it without that kind of assistance, right? And we need to make sure that that is a viable choice for people, that people are able to find a $400,000 home on the market, right? And those are probably not going to be big McMansions. They're probably going to be smaller. They're going to be townhomes. They're going to be starter homes. I live in a 600 square foot house, right? And it's like a house, but it's very small. And a lot of people would be very eager to have those kinds of opportunities. And if we part of the reason that you're seeing this decline in homeownership amongst black homeowner or black population amongst other populations, right, who've struggled in this, is that the average size of the house has also grown substantially since the 60s, right? And so like all the new homes are 3,000 square feet and they cost millions of dollars, right? And that's a problem. We should not do that. And that is the proximate cause of a lot of this affordability challenges. And that's why I think that the townhome proposal that I'm talking about is at least one of the solutions that we need to bring to bear on this problem.
Thank you. Lachey, I'm going to, just to move it a little bit faster, and since you said that, you mentioned that you worked as a staffer, I did too in Congress, so yay, go staffers. We know stuff. So here's one for you. The state legislature, as you know, has struggled to pass and enact impactful solutions pertaining to housing affordability and the homelessness crisis. What bills would you submit or sponsor to address these pressing matters? And Colin, this will be coming at you too.
So just remember, once again, I've never been an elected official, but based on my experiences of being in the community and having to have struggled on my own to purchase my home, I had to move back to my parents' house for 2 years to save. And now, thank God, I do have it, but some of us in this room still have their kids at home, and you want them to get out of your house. But speaking based on that experience, definitely expanding affordable housing programs similar to Cal HFA as well with the down payment assistance for first-time home buyers. Also, as I mentioned, the equity program to get the state to offset the cost to make homes a little bit more affordable, but also credit repair programs. Those things are extremely important. Some of us have things that are on our credit from past, or sometimes things from our family members who put them on there unbeknownst to us. And so we are now toting the line and holding on to those debts that's keeping us from being able to purchase a home. Also, definitely looking at us utilizing public land. We know that our schools and our churches do have property for which they can currently build on. So doing what we can to make sure that we have public and also private entities coming into play to help us build, to be able to expand our housing that is currently there. But also encouraging workforce housing development by offering tax incentives to builders who will prioritize housing for middle-class buyers. So my goal is to rebuild the middle class and make sure that we do increase access to our homes.
Thank you.
So,
Colin.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of things. I mean, one thing that I already shared with folks about the townhomes, right? And I think that's like a key piece of this puzzle, and something I'd like to do earlier in my career in the legislature. Another thing that I've had some success on, we didn't talk about it earlier, but one of the campaigns that I ran at Circulate San Diego is we identified that MTS, the transit agency, had a lot of empty land, empty parking lots. Some parking lots are like really, really full, but a lot of them are really empty. And we launched a campaign demanding that they allow for those empty parking lots to be transformed into affordable homes. And right now we have thousands of units in the pipeline now on MTS property that are going to be right near the trolley.
Permanent housing?
Permanently affordable housing.
That's great.
Right, and this I think has been a tremendous success. I'm very proud to have played a part of it, but I think MTS deserves a lot of credit in their efforts to implement it going forward. We should be doing that statewide. And we should be requiring all transit agencies who have to evaluate their real estate portfolios and make that available. There's a lot of public land that should be turned into housing. There's a lot of different things that ought to be looked at in that, but I think transit agency land is prime for it. And we have a really successful model in San Diego and other transit agencies who follow that model.
Thank you. So, Lachey, in talking about housing developers now, I've got a question for each of them. They're a bit different. In cases where developers receive incentives like tax breaks or zoning changes, what measures will you implement to ensure that they deliver on promises for community benefits, such as affordable housing units and green space?
So honestly, in this moment, I cannot tell you the exact measures. What I want to do is make sure that I have the conversation with all of you who are here to ensure that the measures that I am going to propose to ensure that they're being held accountable comes from us.
Thank you. Did you want mine for you is a little bit tougher, but do you want to answer this one and put some knowledge out there?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So So I think that's actually really key, and I've done some work on that directly. So we have a policy in California called the Housing Bonus Program. It says to developers, if they are willing to, who are building an apartment complex, if they're willing to set aside a certain percentage that is affordable, then they can get some other streamlining benefits for their project. In La Mesa, almost all of the apartment projects in the last 6 years have utilized that, and so almost all of them have new affordable units in them. And the one thing that the state law does not require is any firm accountability measure to ensure that those units are being leased out to people who are income qualified. And so one of the things that we started doing a couple years ago, or maybe last year in the city of La Mesa, some policy that I sponsored, was to require an affordable housing agreement between the city and the developer with a monitoring fee, so that the city could have enough money to actually go through the process and review the materials of the people who are living there to ensure that they're being leased out to people who are income qualified. That's something that I think needs to be expanded statewide. It's great that we're providing these incentives to these projects so we can get those affordable units, but we have to make sure to hold account to the folks who are doing those buildings that they're actually following through with the bargain that we struck with them.
I appreciate that, particularly because this next question. You have campaign contributions from developers, substantial, wouldn't you say, compared to your opponent? Yeah.
I do a lot of. I've raised some money for this campaign. I intend to win it.
From housing developers. So here's the question. How will you ensure that your decisions on housing policy, because you're talking about making decisions where you hold developers accountable for equity issues. How will you make sure that your decisions are in the best interest of the community that you serve, rather than those who fund your campaign?
Yeah, I mean that's the great question of our democracy, right? And it's not just I think you're right. No, but I think that it is. So I've certainly gotten some support from businesses. I've gotten support from unions. I've gotten support from individuals. My mom made a donation. Like that's part of how the campaign structure works, and we have to pick people who we think are going to go through that process and serve honorably and keep the interests of their constituents in mind as they're making those decisions. I'm very fundamentally and historically committed to housing affordability. I've spent my career and life doing that, and the policies that I've advanced to try to advance that have all been focused on creating more affordable opportunities for people. So some of the policies that I've been working on, like the Housing Bonus Program, which I've personally written and sponsored 2 different enhancements to that have been signed into law by this governor. They all require affordable units to be built in order for the benefits to be enjoyed by those projects. And in fact, both of those bills that I wrote had a higher percentage of affordable units in them than the predecessor programs, right? And yes, it's a bargain. The developer who's building those projects are happy to take this bargain because they get some streamlining and they get to get their projects done a little faster. But it's only if they give back to the community and only if they create deed-restricted, permanently affordable homes. And that's, I think, the right way to approach this.
Just a really quick follow-up. You said they are allocating a higher percentage. What is the higher percentage?
Yeah, so the policy, when I became aware of it, it was an 11% affordable requirement in order to get access to it or to get the maximum benefit to it. And this is a base density. It's a little complicated, but it's 11%. The second update that was signed into law in 2020 got it up to 15%. And then the law that was signed in 2023 got it up to 30%.
That's good. Thank you. Lachey, in 2020, the California School Dashboard reported that 12 of the state's worst performing schools were in the San Diego Unified School District, and 9 of the 12 are in the 79th Assembly District. Across the state, Black students are consistently the lowest performing in English and math. Specifically, and I know a minute's a short amount of time, but specifically, and recognizing that hope is not a plan. What are your plans for improving public education and academic achievement in our state? And what specifically would you do to lift school performance in the 79th?
Okay. So keep in mind that we're going to have to work closely with our California Department of Education. And as we're working with them, we need to make sure that, number one, the San Diego County Office of Education needs to have a lot more authority. Too often people think that, oh, you're able to go there and they can help you do certain things. No, they cannot mandate, they cannot regulate. All they can do is basically give you training. So as you are giving money to our current states, I want to make sure that our county office of ed have a lot more authority to be able to approve and or deny the local controlled accountability plans and do what they can to really hold people accountable for the lack of student achievement within the districts. So that's going to be a priority for me, is making sure that we give some more authority to all of our county office of educations. Also, dealing with the education system within itself, the funding has to come down. It has to do, once again, with the accountability of the transparency that currently exists. When you're investing money into the current school systems, I know for a fact that a number of our schools in our area, they were not achieving. One, the money hasn't come in, and we have to continue to do what we can to follow the money. For example, when you look at Lincoln High School, in that football field, there's no rhyme or reason why that money that was allocated 4 years ago for that field has been moved to another project that is now north of 8. No rhyme or reason. So it would be my duty to hold these school districts accountable, but making sure that the county office of ed, once again, has the authority to call them out on what's being done for any of the financial disparities that are currently happening. You said something else in the question, if you don't mind really quick.
I don't remember, but I want to ask you another question.
Oh, okay.
And this is real. The Black Californians were 6% of the electorate, 6.5% of the total population. Who are you going to be able to get to care about Black kids, and how? I mean,
Absolutely.
this didn't just start now.
No, it didn't. No, it did not. Can I care about Black kids? Absolutely.
Now, I know you can. I
Yeah.
said, who can you get to care?
Oh,
Not whether or not
we
you
can get
care.
everyone to care, because the bottom line is you have to have people in place who believe and understand that all kids can achieve at the highest level. You need to make sure that you're hiring people who truly understand the value of education, understand the value of diversity, and making sure ethnic studies is being taught to ensure that there is empathy and that there is support across all of our different cultures that currently exist. And so, yes, can we get people to buy into the achievement of Black students? Absolutely. But we also have to make sure that those that are our superintendents that are in place truly understands that, and that they can build relationships to get people to buy into the work that needs to be done. Right now, we're lacking on that big time. We're lacking on the support from our superintendents, from our teachers, because there is a bias there.
Is there support from the state legislature?
Absolutely.
So it's just waiting for the-
There is support from the legislature. There's stuff that's being pushed out from the Black Caucus. There's things that's come down the pipe from the California Department of Education. But once again, the issue is the county does not have authority to go in and regulate and mandate things that are pushed across the state. We give the school districts too much autonomy. They give them the ability to go to CDE and ask for whatever they want, and things get changed. We have to stop allowing CDE to say, okay, for example, the charter school approvals. If it's denied here, they get to go to the state and appeal to the board to get the charter, even though we know, for example, I will call out a school, Ifton Charter has been doing horrible work for years, but they're able to go to the state and still get their charter approved.
Thank you. Colin, did you want to respond to this question? Want me to ask it again?
Yes, please. Yeah.
In 2020, California School Dashboard reported that 12 of the state's worst performing schools are in San Diego Unified School District, and 9 of the 12 are in the 79th AD. Across the state, Black students are consistently the lowest performing in English and math. What are your plans? And remember I said to Lachey, hope's not a plan. What are your plans for improving public education and academic achievement in our state? And what specifically would you do to lift schools' performance in the 79th AD?
Yeah, so I think, there's a couple of things. I mean, one that has become a a topic of broader conversation in the last decade or so is making sure that we're following the science of reading to teach people how to read, and that is not being done uniformly. And even school districts and counties' offices of education who give lip service to this and say that they're doing it, when you actually look in the classroom, it's not always happening. And I think we need to identify accountability measures to ensure that is actually happening. That it's not just a policy document that's written down somewhere, that we're actually monitoring this to ensure that that every student is giving the same access to the kind of instructional processes that have proven to work. Similarly, with access to math, not every student has the same access to challenging math courses in California, and I think that's just astonishing, and there's no way we shouldn't allow for that. And we need to make sure that everyone has high quality instruction, and that we're both working with our partners in education, but also holding them accountable, so that the students that they're serving are able to get the high quality education that they deserve.
Is this something you see yourself taking up if you're elected?
Yeah, yes, but I will say, with some humility here, that I'm not an expert in education, right? And so I'm going to be leaning on others to help inform me on this. And honest. And let me just say, if I am successful, Lachey, I hope you don't mind getting a few calls.
That's fine, and vice versa. Can I I
Yes.
just wanted to add on to that as well.
Just very quickly, 20 seconds.
Okay, so the one point I want to make is that when you approve the scores for the kids who are at the bottom, everybody's going to rise.
Yeah, that's true.
So address those that are at the bottom, and we'll be able to move forward. So, you said 20 seconds. So I
You
can
did.
stop.
They're very good.
Well, yeah, you do have to have that as well. The other point is that the state currently have what's called community schools, and we're bringing that back. And I'm also part of the Community Schools Initiative that's also being pushed by CDE, the Department of Education. And that takes us back to what we used to have back in the day. We think about the Panther Party and the work for what they've done. We're trying to bring that in to ensure.
That's more than 20 seconds.
Yeah, I know.
Cassandra.
Sorry.
Cassandra asked the
Sorry.
question. Any questions
yes.
from the audience? We can take a couple before we do the last ones. A question, not a statement. Come on up. You can have the mic. I'm going to hold it, though.
I don't need the mic.
Okay.
I don't need the mic. Good evening.
Hey,
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you guys for being here. My question is around education, and so my question, really, really important question. As a mother of two and an aunt of 4 young girls that are being raised here in San Diego, and also a student of San Diego Unified, I do know the value of public education. What I also know is that if we don't see ourselves in that classroom or on our campuses, we will not succeed, period, point blank. So, within our 79, how will you guys make sure that our pipeline is refueled with folks that look like our students? What is your plan?
Can you briefly reiterate that question so the live?
Why don't you come speak into the mic, because we also want our audience is on. No, she can come stand right with me. Just turn around this way, the camera's right there. Ask your question, but not your full statement, just your question. The pipeline question.
What is your plan to refuel our pipeline of educators within the 79th and the 79th district in San Diego County for our educators that look like our students, the Black and brown students in San Diego County? Because we know that that is what is successful for our students. And right now, that is not what our students are seeing. I'm a veteran educator, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you for your question. Who would like to take that question?
Yeah, I'm happy to address it. Yeah, I mean, I think this is a great question. I think what we need to be doing is looking at, especially in our higher education programs, what are we doing to show people who are in community college, in our public universities, that teaching is a great opportunity for them. and to be affirmatively recruiting them into those programs, creating programs of support to encourage them to get in there. There's a lot of great academic data that shows what the questioner was saying too, that students oftentimes perform better if they can have some affinity with their teachers, and it's not just on race too. You actually seen this for boys. Boys actually benefit when there's more male teachers in the school, right? So I think we need to take action on that and to try to encourage more young men to become teachers as well. So I think we need to look at that, quite broadly and comprehensively, and especially utilize our community college and higher education systems to encourage more people to go into those career paths.
Thank you. Lachey, did you want to touch on that?
Sure. So we, yes, at our university levels, we do need to make sure that we are advertising the teacher conditioning programs that currently exist. But we used to have some mentor programs back in the day, especially throughout San Diego Unified, where you had some of the veteran leadership that was mentoring our youth. So bringing back some of those programs to identify student teaching and also to do what we can to help grow in the actual teaching population. But first things first, teachers do not get paid enough. So we need to do what we can to increase the pay for our teachers, but also to recruit people to come to San Diego or to California, period, to even teach. We have to help them with the cost of living. A lot of them are not coming because they cannot afford to stay here. And this is not only for the university, but it's also for K-12. And we've talked about this years ago for San Diego State in particular, but also San Diego Unified.
Thank you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but this next question's for you, for you both, but we'll start with you, Lachey. Veteran homelessness is a national crisis. What measures will you take, if elected, to address veteran homelessness and the disproportionate number of unsheltered Black veterans in our communities and statewide?
Well, we definitely need to do what we can to increase veteran housing assistance. There are some things that currently exist. I was speaking with some of the veterans recently, and they were talking about the issue of their property tax exemptions. And so that falls into an area of concern for them because it's based on their overall, their eligibility as far as them being disabled. So there's a certain percentage that is there, and some of them do not meet the actual threshold for the assistance. So going back to do what we can to address that to where those that are receiving disability benefits can still be able to get their tax exemption. But definitely addressing the veteran housing itself as far as the programs. We know that a lot of them, they're losing their homes. Their rent is just too high, and they're asking for extended care for their families. And so we have to do what we can to address that. Not only are they losing their homes because of the cost of living within itself and not having programs and services put in place, but some of them are losing their homes too because they are suffering from mental health supports.
Yes.
So they need to have adequate mental health support programs put in place for them. We do need some better legislation to help them more. And it's not just mental health support, but also sexual trauma. These things have to be addressed. So
Thank you, Lachey. That was a deep ending there. Sorry, I'd like to know more about that, but we're just running out of time. Would you like me to repeat the question?
No, I think I got it.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is a great question. And so if people aren't already aware of the statistics, the percentage of Black homeless people is like 5 times the percentage of the population compared to the overall population. So it's just a dramatic, homelessness is dramatically more severe for Black folks in our community, and whether they're veterans or not. And so when I was at the Housing Commission, one of the things that I was engaged on is something called the VASH voucher. It's a voucher. It's similar to the Housing Choice voucher, which is it used to be called the Section 8 voucher, but it's only available for veterans. And what happens is that a veteran will get issued one of those, and then it'll take forever to be able to find an apartment that will rent to them. And so people will lose their vouchers. And so we actually have a bunch of unused vouchers. And the federal government would give us more vouchers, but it wouldn't house anyone because they're not actually able to get it. One of the things that the Housing Commission did during COVID, this is not while I was there, is there were some other housing resources, and that were made available to the Housing Commission, and the Housing Commission hired navigators to help people find housing, and they had a very high success rate about getting people to housing and be able to utilize some of the voucher programs that were available in that COVID era. That is a program that we should replicate for the VASH voucher, that we can state fund that. You know, if the feds aren't doing it, they should, but they're not doing it. We can step in and do that. And fortunately, in our community, we have a model to follow in the Housing Commission success on this. I think NPR did like a really big profile on it, or the LA Times or something. You can look it up if you're interested. And those are the sorts of things that we can and should do to make sure not just that people are getting housed, but also that we're best utilizing the federal resources that we have available that aren't being utilized, right? So we don't have to spend a whole bunch of money to do this. There's actually money there. We just got to unlock it by investing in some housing navigators. And you don't have to take my word for whether or not it's going to work. It's actually already worked.
Thank you.
Could I
Appreciate
I
that.
just had something based on my own experience.
But I'm going to promise to cut you off at 20 seconds. Go
Okay.
ahead. And then you can have 20 seconds. once
The
you call.
education itself, as it pertains to veterans, need to know the difference between a 30-year fix and a variable rate loan. And I'm saying that from my own experience of getting a loan originally, and it was a variable, and you had a balloon payment that came later on, and people have fallen short to that because they were not properly educated on the different types of loans that exist, even though they're going through the VA.
Yeah, that's you. Thank you.
So I'll spend my 20 seconds in saying, listen, folks, you know, offering a homeless person a mortgage is not what they're looking for. They're homeless. They need an apartment, and it's okay for everyone to aspire to homeownership, but like that can't be the only piece of the solution. We have to be serious and realistic about where people are and the kinds of interventions that they need. And you know, property taxes are not, you know, getting a waiver on your property tax is not helpful if you don't own property, and in fact you don't even have an apartment.
Thank you. Another question for the audience? I'm on my last one. Look at the camera.
I wanted to ask about the MTS housing that they're building on their land. I know that they're a private company, but they get state and federal funds. And I would like to know how they're picking the contractors who are building these housing.
That's not my area.
Yeah.
Not my area.
Yeah, I mean, there's different development organizations who are doing those. Oh, are we okay? No.
So sorry.
Okay. So some of them are nonprofits, some of them are private companies. For MTS in particular, they have a project labor agreement, and so they, which means that the projects have to be built with skilled and trained union labor. It doesn't have to be union, but it usually is. And so there's the developers who are project leading on those, they hire based on whether or not they're qualified.
Contractors that are for the opportunity to work on those projects?
I don't know. I mean, I'm sure. Yes, there are. I don't know all the ins and outs in every particular project, and I'm sure it's different for different projects.
Avina, do you have a question? And this will. Oh, Lachey, did you want to respond?
No.
No, she didn't. She told me earlier that she. I got this, girl. Thank you for coming up.
Hi. My question is on housing. And you talked about deed restrictions. And who are you going to partner with on the deed restrictions? In addition to that, when you're talking about affordable housing, and I know you guys are always talking about rentals. Real affordable housing is helping them to purchase a home and create sustainability for that home. Like you can give them down payment assistance, but perhaps a subsidy going through. And I do a program with the San Diego Housing Commission.
Your question again, and
Okay.
then I'll take the mic back. Get that question out one more time.
Okay. In terms of affordable housing, your deed restrictions, who are you going to partner with? How would you operationalize that, and how would you turn that into affordable housing?
Excellent. Thank you, Avina.
Yeah, so that's a great question. So what deed restrictions mean for affordable housing is that when a project builds, commits to having affordable units, whether they get some subsidy or it's part of the housing bonus program, they have to file something, a deed restriction at the county. And what it says is that that property or some subset of units on those properties have to be rented to people who are, or sold, because they can do it for sale affordable housing too, that they have to be rented or sold to someone who is income eligible, depending on whatever the terms of those programs are. And so that's like an existing thing. It happens right now. What I had been talking about doing at the city of La Mesa. And by the way, what that implies, what that requires, the reason that's done is that if someone builds that project and then they decide to sell it, right, that because it's recorded on the deed, those affordability requirements move with the project, even with a new owner, right? So that's the point of deed restricting. It makes it permanent, right? And so what we did in La Mesa, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that anyone's looking over the landlord's shoulder, right, when he's renting the unit or selling the unit. And so that's why what we did in La Mesa is we now have a system where the developers themselves have to pay us, the city, to review the residents, to make sure the information from those residents to ensure that it's being leased out to someone who's income eligible. Yeah, and if I could just add just one thing, I mean, I appreciate the comment about owning home and building wealth, and that's really important. That's one of I was talking about the townhome thing. This is important. I aspire to that myself, but not everyone wants that. And that's not what everyone wants to do. Some people want to have a temporary place. They want to invest in something different than a house. They want to invest in a business. And so my view is that we ought to have different choices available for different people that they can afford, and then people can make their own choices depending on what they want to do in their lives.
Thank you, Colin. Lachey, did you want to respond to Venus' question?
No.
Okay. One more question? I see your hand. We're going to take this lady here. Come on up.
All right.
Here you go. Here you go.
Okay, thank you. Okay, this is another housing question, but it's particularly for Colin. You mentioned earlier about your involvement or affiliation with the State Department of Housing and Community Development. Could you tell us how long you were there? And was this directly after like an appointment position from Governor Brown's office?
Yeah, I was appointed to serve in the administration as the Director of External Affairs at the Department of Housing and Community Development in, I think, the July of 2020 or 2011, and I served there for 2 years. And then I got recruited to go be the Director of Policy at the San Diego Housing Commission, which is the public housing authority at the City of San Diego.
Thank you. We'll take this as the last question. Come on up.
Yeah, mine was just a follow-up, really.
A question. Okay.
The question is to both. In your respective roles or in the most recent roles you have had, as you both spoke to equity in business and the opportunity for Black and Brown-owned businesses to be able to participate, what have you done, be it ordinances, be it projects, what have you done to encourage Black and Brown businesses to complete the RFP? What was your outreach and what was the net from that?
Good question. Thank you. Great question. Lachey, why don't we start with you?
So some of the work that we did while I was in Secretary of State Weber's office was we did community meetings, also community education programs and so forth, and make sure that they were connected with all of the necessary steps and what they needed to move forward. And so that's something that we did then. Also been able to work with the Workforce Partnership and others as well in regards to educating folks in regards to their small businesses and what they need to get done.
Thank you. Colin?
Yeah, a couple of years ago, I was very proud to vote to fund Small Business Accelerator program for the city of La Mesa. We've had at least 2 classes of graduates from that program. I wasn't a part of like the recruitment. Our staff did that, but I was pleased to see that it was a majority minority participants. I think all of them were women. There may have been one stray guy who was in it. And they've been, a number of those graduates have gone on to start really cool businesses here in La Mesa. There's a tea and spice shop on Jackson and La Mesa Boulevard. Everyone should check out. It's a young black woman who runs that. They have all kinds of weird spices and fun things. Like I think I got like a coffee flavored salt that was really neat, and a bunch of strange teas. And there's we actually had to revisit doing it because we were running out of storefronts in the city because we had so many of these small little businesses that were coming out from this. I think that was just one. I was honestly a little skeptical that it was going to work out so well, but it really did, and I was happy to fund it again after seeing those successes. And I think those are, to me it was a good reminder that sometimes these kind of little small programs that aren't really expensive but have a lot of buy-in from staff and participants can create some real great outcomes for them and for our community.
Thank you.
I was just going to say this. They can, but if you think about the Southeast San Diego community in particular, we have struggled so long to keep black businesses there. Me living there, me seeing it, we come in, we move in, we have the business that's there. Even with the overwhelming support of our community, we haven't been able to sustain the businesses. A lot of that has to do with the cost of living and the cost of the rents going up. So there has to be some other things that are done throughout the state to ensure that there is some additional funding, whether it's going to be an actual state bank that's set aside to help support these small businesses to be able to sustain and move forward. I'm sick and tired of seeing us come into the community with businesses, and then a year or two later, sometimes 6 months, we're gone. And so one way to do that is make sure we do have a bank of money that's there to continue to support them along their overall journey. I know that that's going to be a difficult task, and it can be, but that is a start.
Thank you. So we're at the end. This is my favorite set of questions to ask. And this is a name names time. So we'll start with you, Lachey.
Again?
Yeah. Well, no, we can start with Colin, except I think you'll have an easier time of it. Well, maybe we'll start with you just because I know it might be a little more challenging. In your career, this two-parter. What efforts have you made to empower and listen to the voices of black San Diegans in your sphere of influence? And then there's the one where we'll name names. To whom do you look for insight and guidance on issues of concern to black Americans generally and black San Diegans specifically? So name the black folks that you call when you're trying to wrap your mind around something.
Yeah, no, those are great questions. So, I mean, there's a couple of things about sort of elevating black people in my community. I've been very proud to have endorsed and supported 2 different black women to be elected to the city council in La Mesa, both Akilah Weber and Patricia Dillard. I've been fortunate to serve honorably with them. I was proud to have the support in my first election from Shirley Weber, and when I've been faced with questions before our council in my role, that's related to black people in our community, boy, you better believe I asked them first, right? And we had someone who wanted to have they wanted to raise the Juneteenth flag over City Hall, but I wasn't sure if Patricia wanted to do that, and I talked with Patricia first, right? And those are the things that I think that's the right approach to take that input. And and I say this, I try to approach these questions with an appropriate humility. That I'm not a black person, and I don't have that experience, and I'm not going to have it. And if I'm going to be an effective representative, and I represent black people today in La Mesa, right? It's like not the blackest part of the district, right? But like there's definitely black people who live here, and I have to approach that with humility so that I can do a good job to try to do my best to understand what's going on with people and to represent them honorably.
Thank you. Lachey, would you like me to repeat the question?
Sure.
In your career, what efforts have you made to empower and listen to the voices of black San Diegans in your sphere of influence? To whom Do you look for insight and guidance on issues of concern to Black Americans generally and Black San Diegans specifically? Name names.
Okay. To empower, I am one of the founding board members of Be Well, Black Women's Institute for Leadership Development. And there are some folks in here that are part of that. And out of that result, we have a number of people who are now appointed to various boards and commissions and have ran for different elected offices and have moved up the leadership chain. To name some people, is of course Secretary of State Dr. Shirley Weber, current State Assembly member Dr. Akilah Weber. I do have a personal relationship with Dr. Malana Karenga, the late Dr. Dorothy Smith. I used to call on her when I had some education concerns. County Board of Supervisor Monica Montgomery Stepp. Of course, our very own Ellen Nash. Dr. Sharon Whitehurst Payne as well. I talked to my pastor as well, Pastor Nate Stewart, along with Leonard Thompson, Carol Smith, and a host of others. And there's some of you that are actually here in this room today that I have personally called on as well in regards to where we are and some of the things that we need to get done as it pertains to students of color, but also just the overall Black community. Even Armand King, we talk all the time. We talk all the time about a number of issues that are being faced as we're talking about gang violence, cannabis equity work, and all these other types of things. So those are just a couple of names that I can put out there.
Yeah, that's just a couple.
Elise, Sabina, you want me to keep going?
No, you can stop
Matthew
now.
Gordon is
No,
a part of my team.
you've run out of time. You've run out of time. All right, Colin, and then Lachey, this will be for you too. This is the last question. If elected to the Assembly, what specific measures will you undertake to recruit, hire, and promote qualified Black staff, including policy staff, in your Sacramento and district office?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think BAPAC's going to get a call. And
Did you hear? You're going to get a call.
So this is a really important question, and it's not the first time I've gotten it, right? Or some version of this. This is a very diverse district, right? Very internally diverse, right? And geographically diverse, right? El Cajon is in the same district as
National City.
well, National City's not actually in the district anymore, but
my bad.
yeah, that's all right. I wasn't going to correct you earlier, but it was very, very different than like Paradise Hills. It's just it's very different, right? And so geographically, but also certainly racially too. And so one of the things that I'm going to do is have a very public, very open, very cast a wide net hiring and to try to get people that to know that they are encouraged to apply. And I'm going to do some affirmative recruitment too, right? So I'm going to talk to community organizations. I'm going to talk to leaders in the community. I'm going to talk to people who I've met on the campaign and who I've known in other ways, and to encourage people to apply and to make sure that I have a district staff and a capital and policy staff that is reflective of the vibrancy and diversity of our district. That's something I take very seriously, and you've heard me say it now. It's on video, and I'm looking forward to people holding me to that.
Thank you.
Do you mind going back?
Lachey, would you like me to repeat the question?
Yes, please.
If elected to the Assembly, what specific measures will you undertake to recruit, hire, and promote qualified Black staff, including policy staff, in your Sacramento and district offices?
Thank you. I will continue to actually do exactly what Secretary of State Weber did. She came out to the community, she talked to the community, reached out to different community organizations in regards to the current staffing that is there, and sought out the recommendations. She's paid attention, and I will pay attention to the community, meaning the work that's being done, the advocacy that's there, and making sure that I have people in place that understands the district, making sure that I have people in place that truly is a big reflection of this district overall. You cannot run a district without making sure that it's going that your staff looks like the population you're going to be serving. And so making sure that I'm also reaching out to our colleges for civic engagement opportunities and seeing who is there, and do what I can to train and continue to uplift those that are interested in coming on board in this particular field. I was the very first district director that was Black for San Diego. And since then, now we have another one, so Chevelle. And so that was important for us, and to make sure that our capital staff also had Black staff. And so there is a Black staff organization that exists up in Sacramento, and so advocating and speaking with them to see if anyone would be interested in coming on board, as there are over 200 positions, 200 people that will be looking for jobs after this election is over. So going through that process.
Thank you. So, wow, we've come to the end of our time together, and the candidates are now invited to give their 2-minute closing statements. We'll start with you, Colin. And let me say this part because you may shape how you want to present your close. We welcome what more you care to tell us about your qualifications or your views on the issues discussed. However, we are especially interested in your hope and vision for equality. Thank you. 2 minutes.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for being here. Thank you to our moderator and to my opponent up here. I think we've had a very useful discussion about where our priorities are and where our experiences are. I've spent a lot of my time in public policy working on housing and transportation issues, really with an eye toward equality and with an eye toward ensuring that everyone has comparable access to homes that they can afford, a transportation system that can work for them. These are things that I'm very committed to today and will be continuing going forward. I've tried throughout my career, especially on the city council, to be really focused on tangible, specific things that we can do that are going to make a meaningful impact in people's lives. And that goes for, we've made it easier to build granny flats in people's backyards so they can build more equity in their homes. We've invested in business development through our program to help people start businesses. We've invested in homeless outreach programs so that people are able to get access to services if they're willing to. These are very specific things that I've done, and I think reflect my real strong priority on actually getting things across the finish line that matter to people. And sometimes it sounds boring, sometimes it sounds mundane, but you know what? That's government, folks. And if we want to be really focused on, if we want to really improve people's lives, we have to be willing to do those sorts of things. I think I've got the background to do that, and my priorities are going to be to make things more affordable for people, more opportunities for people to get to buy homes, more opportunities for homeless people to be able to get housed, and changing the way that we're allocating our infrastructure dollars so that communities are not left out, so that the roads don't look bad in certain neighborhoods but fine in other neighborhoods. Those are things that I'm committed to and reflect my experience and priorities. So again, I appreciate everyone's opportunity, or appreciate the opportunity to be here with everyone. This is a C4 event, so I'm going to ask for everyone's vote when you cast your ballot. If you want to find out more, make a donation, sign up to volunteer. My website is colinparent.org, and I would be happy to talk with anyone else after this event. Thank you again.
Thank you, Colin.
Thank you.
Lachey.
So, my name is Dr. Lachey Sharp Collins, candidate for State Assembly to represent the 79th, the only candidate endorsed by the California Democratic Party, Planned Parenthood of the Pacific Southwest, or so just Planned Parenthood, the Sierra Club, California Teachers Association. That's just to name a few. I bring to you the experience. One, I've already ran this office as the district director, knowing the office inside and out. But more importantly, I live the life of you. Those of you who live within the 79th district, I share in your experiences. It is important that when you elect someone, that you do what you can to elect them based on you seeing yourself within them, seeing yourself within their overall policy ideas, or let alone just how they are going to interact and also approach with others. I'm asking you today to vote your values, vote your overall values. Make sure that you are picking someone who is not afraid to stand up and fight, even though they know that the road is not going to be easy. I know that the road will not be easy. Being a black woman and being black, period, and raising my kids in San Diego is not easy. So I know that the road is not going to be easy, but I also know that there is no one-size-fits-all model approach to anything for what we do. You don't ever have to worry about asking me to bring you to the table. You will always have a seat at my table. Don't worry about bringing a folding chair. I will never leave you behind. This relationship with you was not about getting me in office and just sticking it out just for that term. This goes beyond 12 years. The work that we do has to be our overall collective responsibility. It is my responsibility to be elected, well, when I'm elected, to make sure that your voice is heard, your voice is valued, your voice is going to be protected, but also you will not be marginalized. I'm tired of our community being left behind. With me, you won't be left behind. Together, our voices truly equal power. And because of equal power, I know that we can do all things. All things. And I will continue to stand and fight for women's reproductive rights, LGBT rights, housing, affordability, education, quality education, regardless of that zip code. It shouldn't matter where you live. You should be able to receive a quality education. But continue to stand up for all of our social justice and economic justice concerns. And me doing that will be done with you. I will not do for you. I will do with you. So I do ask for your vote. As your ballots are here today, remember to vote for Dr. Lachey Sharp Collins because our voices equal power.
Thank you. Let's give them both a hand. Thank you for sticking it out, audience. Thank you both candidates. Excellent job. Lachey, we look forward to receiving your 100-day plan.
On Monday.
You think about that, Colin?
All right, I'll think about it.
Okay.
I'll think about it.
Audience, thanks in advance for voting in this critical election and voting all the way down the ballot. Before I turn the mic over to Ellen, I just want to flag some dates for you, deadline. The last day to register to vote is, in this general election, is October 21st. Mail drop-off ballots, your drop-off locations have already opened. Vote by mail. Vote, your ballot that you got in the mail can be returned in person or posted. Vote centers open early, beginning October 26th. And vote by mail ballots must be postmarked on or before Election Day and received by the 12th. Polls open at 7 a.m. on the 5th. Close at 8 p.m. If you're in line, you get to vote. Be ready, be prepared to vote. All right, turning it over to Ellen, and then we'll close it out. Thank you so much for your time and patience.
The slates that are on the tables.
I don't want to hold you too much longer, but I wanted to say thank you all for coming, and I thank you all for staying to the end. I think we have impressed these two candidates that we are serious about our community, and we are serious about who is going to represent us at the state level in all spaces. And I want to say one thing that is very important for us for everyone to think about when you're looking at that ballot, particularly in this race. Who do you trust? Who do you trust? And the only way you're going to decide who you trust is you got to do your research. That's why we took our time tonight, because we wanted you all to have the information that you need in order to make sure you trust the individual that we're going to send to the state. There's been too many times that we have sent elected officials, individuals, locally, state, and federally. We've stood with them, and they have betrayed us. Y'all hear what I'm saying? I'm sick and tired of it, of the betrayal, because they put their own interest over us. They put money over us. They made backroom deals over us. That's why we're talking about affordable housing and poverty and no on Proposition 36 and the whole 9 yards. It's about people who have betrayed us. And we need to stand up and make sure with the vote that you take that you have done your research and listen to everything that these candidates have said, because somebody is going to be elected. Somebody is going to win. And we better make sure it's the person that's going to win that's going to have our best interests at heart. I want to thank these two candidates for coming. I appreciate you, Colin. You immediately responded. You didn't hesitate. Believe me, others have. But you did not. Lachey, I appreciate you and all the work that you've done as well, but one of y'all are going to win. And I'm going to say to both of you, we have to trust you. You got to gain our trust because we've been betrayed too many times. I'm telling you both. We've been betrayed too many times. And I really want to thank you both. I thank you all for coming, and we love you all. Get that ballot out, vote. Register to vote. Get your family and them to vote. We got a watch party that's coming up on November the 5th at ECC, and we're going to do some celebrating because we're going to elect individuals that we trust, that align with our values. Thank you so much for coming.